Joseph, the son of Jacob and Rachel, stands as one of the most remarkable figures in the Bible. His life is one of betrayal, struggle, endurance, and triumph. Joseph's story, recounted in the book of Genesis, provides not only a narrative of personal growth and redemption, but also offers profound lessons in faith, integrity, and the sovereignty of God. This tale, stretching from Genesis 37 to Genesis 50, unfolds like a grand epic. It is filled with intrigue, suspense, moral dilemmas, and divine interventions, reflecting the mysterious ways in which God works in the lives of his people. Joseph was the 11th son of Jacob and the first son of Rachel, his beloved wife. Jacob had two wives, Leah and Rachel, and their rivalry over Jacob's affection had led to a complex family dynamic. Rachel, though barren for many years, finally gave birth to Joseph. His arrival brought Jacob immense joy, and Joseph became his favored son. Jacob's love for Joseph was so profound that he made for him a richly ornamented coat, often referred to as the coat of many colors. This coat was a visible sign of Jacob's preferential treatment, and it filled Joseph's brothers with jealousy and resentment. Joseph, young and innocent, unaware of the deep hatred growing in the hearts of his brothers, had dreams that would further fuel their animosity. In one dream, he saw himself and his brothers gathering bundles of grain in the field, and his bundle stood upright while his brothers' bundles bowed down to it. In another dream, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed down to him. Joseph naively shared these dreams with his family, telling them that they symbolized his future greatness. His brothers' jealousy intensified, and his father rebuked him for speaking of such dreams. As time passed, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers, who were tending the flocks in Shechem. When they saw him coming from a distance, they plotted to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they sneered. But Reuben, the eldest, intervened, suggesting that they should not shed blood, but instead throw him into a pit in the wilderness, intending to rescue him later and return him to their father. The brothers agreed. Joseph, unaware of the danger, approached his brothers. They stripped him of his multicolored coat, threw him into a dry pit, and sat down to eat a meal, indifferent to his cries for mercy. As they ate, a caravan of Ishmaelites, traders from Gilead, passed by on their way to Egypt. Judah, another of Joseph's brothers, suggested that they sell Joseph to the traders rather than leave him to die. After all, he reasoned, what will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? The brothers agreed, and Joseph was sold for 20 pieces of silver. When Reuben returned to the pit and discovered that Joseph was gone, he was devastated. The brothers then took Joseph's coat, dipped it in goat's blood, and showed it to their father, leading him to believe that Joseph had been killed by a wild animal. Jacob was inconsolable, mourning his son's death for many days. His grief was so great that he refused to be comforted, saying, "I will go down to the grave to my son in mourning." In Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guard. Despite the circumstances of his arrival, Joseph's ability to succeed and thrive became evident. The Lord was with him, and everything he touched prospered. Potiphar recognized Joseph's exceptional qualities and made him overseer of his entire household. Joseph's integrity, honesty, and hard work gained Potiphar's trust, and his house was blessed as a result. However, Joseph's life took another dramatic turn when Potiphar's wife attempted to seduce him. Joseph, a man of great moral character, refused her advances. "How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" he asked. But she persisted, and one day when they were alone in the house, she grabbed hold of Joseph's cloak, demanding that he lie with her. Joseph fled, leaving his cloak behind. Angered by his rejection, Potiphar's wife falsely accused Joseph of attempting to assault her. Potiphar, though distressed, had no choice but to have Joseph thrown into prison, where the king's prisoners were held. Once again, Joseph's fortunes seemed to have plummeted, yet the Lord was with him even in this dark time. Joseph found favor with the prison warden, who put him in charge of all the prisoners and the affairs of the prison. While in prison, Joseph encountered two fellow prisoners, the Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and his chief baker, both of whom had offended their master. One night, they each had a dream, and in the morning, they were troubled because there was no one to interpret their dreams. Joseph, seeing their distress, asked, "Why are your faces so sad today?" They explained their dreams, and Joseph, with God's guidance, interpreted them. To the cupbearer, Joseph foretold that in 3 days he would be restored to his position and would once again serve Pharaoh. To the baker, Joseph predicted that in 3 days he would be hanged. Both of these interpretations came to pass exactly as Joseph had said. Before the cupbearer left the prison, Joseph asked him to remember him when he was restored to Pharaoh's service, and to mention him to Pharaoh, hoping for his release. However, the cupbearer forgot about Joseph for 2 more years. 2 years later, Pharaoh had a troubling dream that none of his magicians or wise men could interpret. In his dream, Pharaoh stood by the Nile River, and 7 healthy, fat cows came out of the river and grazed among the reeds. Then 7 lean, sickly cows came up and ate the fat cows. Pharaoh awoke, disturbed, but fell back asleep and dreamed a second time. 7 healthy heads of grain grew on a single stalk, and then 7 thin, scorched heads of grain swallowed the healthy ones. Pharaoh's mind was troubled, and none of his advisors could offer an explanation. Finally, the cupbearer remembered Joseph, and he told Pharaoh about the young man in prison, who had accurately interpreted his dream. Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and when Joseph was brought before him, he was asked to interpret the dreams. Joseph replied, "I cannot do it, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." Joseph explained the dreams. The 7 fat cows and the 7 healthy heads of grain represented 7 years of abundance in Egypt. The 7 lean cows and the 7 scorched heads of grain symbolized 7 years of famine that would follow. Joseph advised Pharaoh to appoint a wise and discerning man to oversee the collection and storage of grain during the years of plenty, so that Egypt would be prepared for the coming famine. Pharaoh, impressed by Joseph's wisdom, made him second in command over all of Egypt, giving him authority over the entire land. Joseph was given Pharaoh's signet ring, fine clothing, and a gold chain. He was also given an Egyptian name, Zaphanath-Paneah, and married Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. Joseph set about the task of preparing Egypt for the famine. During the 7 years of abundance, Joseph collected and stored vast quantities of grain. As the years of abundance came to an end, the famine that Joseph had predicted began. It spread not only throughout Egypt, but also to the surrounding regions. When Jacob heard that there was grain in Egypt, he sent his sons to buy food. 10 of Joseph's brothers made the journey, but Jacob kept Benjamin, Joseph's full brother, at home, fearing for his safety. When the brothers arrived in Egypt, they came before Joseph, who recognized them immediately, but they did not recognize him. Joseph spoke harshly to them, accusing them of being spies. He then demanded that they bring Benjamin to him as proof of their honesty. The brothers returned home, distressed by the turn of events, and they explained the situation to their father. After some time, and the depletion of their remaining grain, Jacob reluctantly agreed to send Benjamin to Egypt with his brothers. Upon their return, Joseph invited them to dine with him. He still concealed his identity, but tested their integrity. When Benjamin's sack was found to contain Joseph's silver cup, the brothers were thrown into disarray. But Judah stepped forward and offered himself as a substitute for Benjamin, begging Joseph to spare his brother. At this moment, Joseph could no longer control his emotions. He ordered all the Egyptians to leave the room, and then he revealed his identity to his brothers. "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt," he said, causing them to be utterly stunned. Joseph reassured them, telling them that it was not they who had sent him to Egypt, but God, who had used the situation to save many lives during the famine. He forgave them fully and asked them to bring their father and their families to Egypt, where they would be provided for. Joseph's family settled in the land of Goshen, where they prospered. Jacob lived for 17 more years before he died. Before his death, Jacob blessed Joseph's 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and pronounced them as his own. When Jacob died, Joseph had him embalmed and buried in the cave of Machpelah, where Abraham and his descendants were buried. After their father's death, Joseph's brothers feared that he might now seek revenge for the wrongs they had done to him. But Joseph reassured them once again, saying, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Joseph continued to live in Egypt until his death at the age of 110. Before he died, he made his brothers promise to carry his bones with them when God delivered them from Egypt and brought them to the promised land. The story of Joseph is a powerful reminder of God's sovereignty and the way he works through even the most difficult circumstances to fulfill his purposes. Joseph's journey from the pit to the palace, from betrayal to reconciliation, is a testament to the faithfulness of God and the importance of integrity, perseverance, and forgiveness. Through Joseph's life, we see that what others may intend for evil, God can use for good. The story of Joseph is not just a historical account, but a timeless lesson in how God's plan unfolds in ways we may never fully understand, but can trust nonetheless. Key lessons from the story of Joseph that resonate deeply, not only in biblical times but also in our lives today. Despite Joseph's many misfortunes, including being betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and wrongfully imprisoned, he never lost faith in God's plan for his life. God's timing and plan are perfect, even when we can't see the full picture. In difficult times, we should remember that God has a purpose for everything, even our suffering. Just as Joseph's trials led to greater things, our challenges can often set the stage for future blessings and purpose, even if we don't understand them at the moment. Joseph's forgiveness of his brothers, who had betrayed him, teaches us the power of forgiveness. He chose to let go of bitterness and hatred, even though he had every reason to retaliate. Instead of seeking revenge, he sought reconciliation and peace. In our own lives, it is important to forgive those who have wronged us. Holding on to grudges only keeps us in bondage, but forgiveness frees us and opens the door to healing and reconciliation. Joseph's refusal to give in to the temptation of Potiphar's wife, despite the risk of punishment, highlights the importance of integrity and moral character. He chose to honor God, even when it seemed like no one was watching. Living with integrity, even in private moments, is crucial. Temptations will come, but our decisions reflect our true character and faith. Like Joseph, we should strive to do what is right, even when it's difficult, or when we are faced with consequences. Joseph's life was a testament to patience. He endured many years of hardship, from being sold into slavery to being unjustly imprisoned, yet he remained steadfast and did not lose hope. Life can be challenging, but we must keep moving forward with patience and perseverance. Just as Joseph eventually saw the fulfillment of his dreams, we too must trust that after trials come rewards.